NSFW, you went to a busy public restroom because you suddenly want to shit so bad. After taking a massive dump, you realize that the toilet bowl won't flush or is broken, but there are a lot of people lined up outside. What will you do? Well, as an adult you just tell the people in line the toilet is broken. Then you find an employee and let them know. You don't have to say, "Hey, I took a massive shit and clogged the toilet." Don't even say you broke the toilet. The toilet is broken. Things I've told store employees about. The soda fountain is out of X soda. There's broken glass on aisle 4. Not, I bumped into a corner display and the display plate fell and broke because it was precariously placed. Hey, there's a bunch of blood on the bathroom floor. I don't know, I just walked into the men's room at a painter and it looked like someone got blasted by a shotgun. Your employee just cleaned the bathroom without gloves and didn't wash his hands when he left. I would expect that at a Jack in the Box, but this is Chick-fil-A. This happened to me at a giant house party once. I waited a long time in line, then when it was my turn laid a massive, extremely solid log that was not going anywhere. There was a huge line of people waiting behind me. I panicked big time. I was hyperventilating, imagining going out the door with that taut turd just lying there exposed in front of God and everybody. Full disclosure, I was a teenager and might have been stoned out of my gourd. I froze for a few minutes. But when somebody started pounding on the door, I did the only thing I could think of, use the huge amount of toilet paper to pick up the turd, wrap it up like a mummy, and throw it out the window. I had a very similar experience. I didn't clog the toilet but dropped a horrifically smelly turd in the only bathroom at a house party where I didn't know very many people. A line was building up and people were knocking more and more aggressively. I could hear people talking behind the door. Is somebody taking a shit in there? What's taking so long? I did the only thing I could think of. I climbed out the window. It worked too. When they got the door unlocked, they ended up blaming some other poor bastard and I got away with it. I have a similar story. I was at the house of someone that I was hoping to bed, and we had been drinking a lot. It was about 4 a.m. and I had to take a shit super bad. Unfortunately, it was so big it would not flush. And their toilet had horrible water pressure. So after a couple attempts to flush, I was panicking a bit already, could not for the life of me find a plunger or even a toilet scrubber. Then of all times, places and people, I hear my lady friend's elderly mother shuffle up to the door, and then her daughter. I had chosen to shit in the first floor bathroom instead of the master bedroom's en-suite bathroom because I didn't want my lady friend to know I was taking a shit right before we'd be having sex. So apparently the first floor bathroom was the nearest bathroom to both her mother's and daughter's bedrooms, and both of them were up at 4 in the morning for some reason. So here I am, a strange drunk man in their home, clogging their toilet, and very obviously they were to have sex with their daughter. What can I say other than I completely panicked? I wadded up some TP, grabbed the shit, and broke it into smaller chunks so that it would hopefully flush. The worst part of this story, it definitely did not flush properly in spite of my efforts. That water pressure was truly the worst. So I exited the bathroom, ignored the odd looks from the daughter and her grandmother, walked out the front door, and never heard from my lady friend again. This happened to me at work, but instead of a solid log it was diarrhea. Right before my shift at the restaurant, went to flush and the bowl filled up, would not go down, started overflowing onto the floor. This is the one staff bathroom. I had to come out and say, guys, just don't use this bathroom. Went to get my manager, who had to fucking plunge it and mop the floor in his nice suit because I had to go serve tables. The shame. I hated that place though, so it's all good in the end. Funny story. My little brother liked to go on the road with my dad, a truck driver. Only, he had a bad habit of not going number 2 while he was out. No one knew this, because he never complained about it, so it went unnoticed. One time, in Kansas City, they've been on the road for almost a week. His poor colon is full of truck stop food. He asks to go inside to use the bathroom. My younger sister is on this trip, so she takes him in. An hour and 20 minutes later they run back to the truck yelling that they need to leave. He had shed so much that when she tried to flush it, It didn't move. The next day they stopped at that same truck stop and they were having to dig up their whole plumbing system to fix it. Yes, the office one is so much worse. I worked in the oil patch in 2019 for a summer and I was the only girl in the field under 50, two other women both in their 60s. Now the office in the middle of the field was actually a trailer structure and we had water problems almost daily. As in, you can't flush the toilet. One day we were having lunch and before we left I had to use the bathroom. It's important to note I was on like day 2 of my period. My heaviest day. I changed my tampon and was all good and went to flush the toilet and bam, toilet doesn't flush. The toilet is super bloody and I had to go. Now it wouldn't have been so mortifying if it were a real women's bathroom, but it was more of a secondary bathroom everyone used. There was nothing I could do so I had to leave it, but whoever flushed that toilet knew it was me because I'm the only one who it could have been. Forever mortified. Sadly, the last time this sort of happened to me was on a remote island campsite with no connection to a water main, and no maintenance crew. The toilet was just a ceramic toilet bowl, with no tank, that had to be manually flushed with water from a bucket filled from a reservoir. I bailed water over and over but couldn't get it all to go down. I eventually gave up and left it for someone else to solve. Luckily there was no queue outside. I had this happen at the Pompeii exhibit in New York. I have Crohn's disease, and why isn't known for having easily accessible restrooms. We were hanging out in the city all day before our time, and I could feel the rumbling in my stomach. Now with Crohn's, your shit can be pungent on a good day, and lethal on a bad day. Give it time to ferment, and it is hazmat level pollution. The exhibit was super crowded, and I finally jumped into a stall that a lot of people were passing by. I look in, and it looks alright to me. Just a little unflushed TP. I let loose with about 2 liters of toxic shit that literally made me gag. I never do a courtesy flush in a public toilet due to the risk of splashback, so I am scrubbing my ass clean, standing up, and the bowl is filling up with TP. The paint was peeling off the ceiling. I figure I better flush it now to not clog it up. I pull the handle and nothing. I finish quickly and walk out to a scene of dozens of men desperately trying to get out of the room. People were engaging and pushing each other in an attempt to escape. I washed my hands and joined the mob. Men were telling men waiting in the hallway to not go into the room of deadly stench. A few fools disregarded the warning, enter the chamber of horrors, but were immediately pushed back. One dude said the people of Pompeii got off light compared to the horror they just endured. The unluckiest janitorial crew in history were forced to go in and contain the disaster. I watched them sadly walk in and do what had to be done, pull out the toilet paper to unclog the bowl. I actually got a cut on my shin when I got pushed out of the way of someone trying to rapidly escape the event horizon of the creeping horror. I've been here. It was in a great Thai restaurant in a unisex bathroom when it all went down. Considering the food, you can imagine the aftermath. To my horror, the toilet wouldn't flush. I proceed to have a minor panic attack as I figure out how to flush this monstrosity. There isn't a plunger in sight. Suddenly I hear a knock on the door. I nervously open it to see one of the most attractive women I have ever seen. In my horrified, embarrassed state I managed to sputter out, "The bathroom is closed." I quickly closed the door, got myself together, and got the hell out of there. Once I had diarrhea in a pub. I was in the toilet for like 30 minutes. The toilet was not clean at all, so I had to shit while squatting and taking a break each few minutes. The worst feeling is when you stand up to rest your legs and the two butt cheeks touch each other. When I went out I was super sweat and my legs were almost shaking. I got some weird looks from the staff while walking out, so I told my GF that we need to pay now. Thankfully my GF was very cooperative. Mostly because I was having diarrhea due to something that her mom cooked. I didn't know at that time, but her dad was also having diarrhea the same day and didn't tell me until this happened. Being in this situation, the go-to move is to silently leave the stall without being noticed. Most folks are busy staring at their phones. Keep your head down as you approach the sink. Wash gingerly but effectively. Don't waste your time with the blow dryer or the paper towels. A single wipe on the jeans is sufficient in this scenario. Remember, the goal is to escape quickly and unnoticed. Next, you'll want to walk lightly towards the door as to not draw any attention to yourself. Once out of the door, run like hell and get out of the scene of the crime. Wipe your brow, and brag to your friends about the heist that you've just executed. I tried this once, in the Turkish mountains, as I was going to participate in a river rafting event with about 150 strangers. The toilet was broken and there was no water. I had gotten diarrhea on the way up the mountain due to bad food. And I accidentally had taken the women's toilet, so a line of about 30 girls was what I met when I came out from the only female toilet. Thank God for alcohol, that made it less embarrassing. I still cringe. I just went out of the toilet making hand signals mixed between sorry and it's not working, as pretty much no one spoke English. I still cringe. Something similar happened to me at the Père Lachaise cemetery in Paris. It was our second day of the trip, still recovering from jet lag. Hadn't pooped in 2 days. It was a drizzly January morning, and after walking through the cemetery for an hour-ish, I suddenly really had to shit. Thankfully, there was a public restroom. I did my business, and then realized there was not only no toilet paper, but also the toilet didn't flush. There was a line of 3 people waiting to use the toilet. All I could do was say sorry, the toilet doesn't flush, and also there's no toilet paper. And actually, that made everyone reconsider how badly they needed to go when they left. Lol. I wanted to add, I am a young female and the girls in line appeared to be college age too. Thankfully they were also American and spoke English. Lol. One day I was on a road trip and got a family-size bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I fucking love those things, and before you know it I had eaten the whole bag. About an hour later into the trip I had to shit. I had to shit bad, so I stopped at the next rest stop I got to and ran to the bathroom and unloaded. Let me tell you what a whole family-size bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos does to your poop. It turns it bright blood red. It was horrifying and it was a lot. The toilet wouldn't flush, so I just left it. Whoever tried to use that next probably left in a panic, trying to find out who died by bleeding out through their ass. I read this first. As you went to buy a public restroom, and I was like, what? Why? But I thought it should explain itself as it goes on. Because you suddenly want to shit so bad. At his point I was dumbfounded and thought, who does that? ? Are you some multimillionaire germaphobe who bought a, presumably new, public restroom just to shit? ? Then I read until the part where it won't flush and thought, understandable. I reread it after and caught my mistake, but thanks up for an almost laugh there. Also, yeah, I agree with the guy who said just say it's broken. It would be more of an ass move if you let them find out by themselves. Was once on a plane queuing for the loo. After a long wait, a wee girl comes out, 8 or 9, looking sheepish. I go in, thinking nothing of it, and then suddenly see this monstrous turd snaking its way to the rim of the bowl. She has tried to hide it with some delicately placed loo roll, but the thing is like a half-length baguette and is just sat there living its best life. The mechanics of how this thing came out of that girl boggle the mind. I go about my business and flush. This thing remains totally unmoved, completely uneroded by the attempt. I flush again. Nothing. It suddenly dawns on me that this was not the work of the wee girl, but more likely some enormous, very well-fed previous occupant. I leave and I say to the next person, sorry, it was there when I went in, and to this day I know they didn't believe that it was the wee girl and not me. This happened to me once when I was a kid. I opened the door, looked at the first person outside with my eyes wide open, which was my way of warning, then I made a beeline for the exit. Heard him grunt loudly as he figured what hell I had left behind for him. To this day I remember his face. I even see him sometimes. Even now he stands in the far corner of my eyesight, and he comes closer each time I forget to flush the toilet. Reading these comments reminded me of a moment of my childhood that still haunts me to this day. When I was 5, I was at my babysitter's house playing with her 2 sons. I really had to poop, so I went to the bathroom. I had to go so bad, a turd missed the toilet. My solution was to try to clean it up, but I just couldn't, so I put the bathroom floor rug over it. Me, being the dumb kid I was, didn't worry about it. After I left that bathroom, out of sight equals out of mind. My babysitter wasn't very happy with her son a few minutes later. He said it wasn't him, but the babysitter didn't believe him. I still lived with that guilt. One time I was at a really nice dinner get-together with some friends at one of their homes along with their parents. We were all having a great time when suddenly right in the middle of dinner I got the really bad stomach cramps and had to take a massive dump. I asked where the bathroom is and to my horror it was right next to the dinner table and it didn't even have a fan I could turn on. As hard as I tried, the noise level was pretty bad. Thankfully it did flush but the smell was atrocious. After I washed I left the bathroom and closed the door behind me. Nobody said a word at the table for a solid 2 minutes. This happened to me except for having people lined up. My stomach was rumbling from the previous night of beer drinking and a Reuben sandwich, so I stopped at a pizza joint and made a beeline for the toilet and released hell. After the sweet and joyous relief, I noticed a sign on the floor that said, "Toilet out of order." I went to flush, and the sign was correct. I wiped and washed up. I looked back and it was awful. I walked out and looked at the kid on the register and said that I hope he has a good day and left. Real story. This happened about 5 years ago. New member at my fire station, dispatcher, not firefighter. Let's call him Dave. Dave was a vegan who talked constantly about his diet and all the fruits and veg that he ate and was super preachy about it and it was annoying. Cue David having the shits at work one day and clogging one of the 2 toilets in the station. He panicked and apparently thought it was a good idea to ask the junior firefighter, let's call him Fred, to help him. Fred said fuck no, you're an adult. You deal with it yourself. Dave tried but ultimately the top-tier plumbing situation meant that it took 2 people to plunge both shitters at the same time and Dave got called to dispatch for an emergency, so someone else had to take over his plunging duties. Captain told Fred that as the junior guy, he was up and had to go deal with Dave's shitsident. Fred complied, because he had to, but he wasn't going down without a fight. He put on his full set of bunker gear, mask and tank and went in. He stopped by the captain's office before he did the job, plunger in hand, like it was an axe he was carrying into a structure fire, just to prove how committed he was to the job. Dave quit the next day. We have never heard from Dave again and I do not blame him for that. Threw a house party in college, packed of people. Upstairs bathroom supposed to be for people who live there and maybe are close friends. Got out of hand and lines started forming as I was taking a shit. People banging. It's my house and they're fucking banging on my door. So I crawled out the window onto the platform, into the window of our attic stairs and came out that door. Said fuck it and let them all stand in line. This kind of happened to me the other day. I was on my period and super struggling with it that month, which is unusual for me. So I went to the toilet, only toilet in the building, unisex, and long story short, after finishing my business it honestly looked like someone had been murdered in the toilet bowl, and the flush didn't work. So I texted my sister and she managed to talk her way in before everyone else and fixed it. Honest to God, no idea what she said to get them to let her go first. She might have told them it was broken and she was there to fix it. I don't know, but I might have died of embarrassment if she hadn't managed it. Goddamn Wonder Woman. So I'm going to pull out my screwdriver and turn off the water pressure. Then I'm going to flush again to get the pressure off of it and open the mechanism with my channel locks. From there I'm going to assess what's wrong with it. Typically it's a flush valve or a top cap if it isn't flushing. Assuming it's the flush valve, I'm going to then wiggle my hands in the air murmuring abracadabra and make a flush valve appear in my hands. The 3.5-gallon flush for toilets, 1.0 for urinals, and replace the malfunctioning part. I'm going to reassemble the mechanism and ease the water pressure back on. Then I'm going to wave goodbye to my child as I relinquish him to his life in the sewer and thank God that I'm a fucking genie and can make the fix appear in my hands on command. This actually happened to me in real life, word for word as he wrote it. Pulled up to a gas station, diaphoretic as hell, busted down the restroom door and let the choco waterfall rip. It was an extremely relieving and disturbing bundle of emotions until I tried to flush and the water filled up but didn't go down. Then mini panic attack. Washed my hands really quick, watching the water just about to overflow, and when I opened the door there were 3 guys in line. I passed the first one in line, made eye contact with the second, and then just speed walked out to my buddy's car and said go go go. Like I just robbed the place.